leaders in, K through 12 as well as higher education. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think of the recent things that are happening in schools? Like, for instance, that certain material is included with sexual references embedded within that. What's your take on that? And how would you prevent something like this from occurring? Because I definitely think that something like that should be prevented, because there's absolutely no need for a child to understand any of what these books contain at that age.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I started this whole creation of the Empowered Social Justice Resources, because groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center have made like K through 12 standards for education, and they call them the social justice standards, and these have been like unquestionably adopted by schools and districts, private schools, public schools. It's like you can't pull your kid out and get them away from it. It's everywhere. And part of that is this toxic gender identity ideology and race ideology. They do work hand in hand under the critical social justice framework. The whole purpose is to dehumanize people, to make it so that they have no loyalty, to their family. If you have no loyalty to a family structure, then of course, your loyalty becomes to the state. And a communist socialist system needs that in order to be successful and to, further the demoralization process, as Yuri Bezmenov would have called it. And so that's what we're seeing. And it's really, I agree with you, Adrian, really highly inappropriate to be teaching kindergartners about things like cis heteropatriarchy and, all the other constructs that come under, the curriculum when they're advancing this critical social justice ideology. It's not appropriate for, children to be taught that from grade K through 12. It's not appropriate for children to be taught that Zionists are bullies, that, they should be standing in solidarity with countries that don't exist, and other things that are part of the core mission of critical social justice ideology. And unfortunately, our teacher education programs have been subverted. So, teachers go into their training programs and they learn that this is how you make the world a better place, and how you make your classroom more inclusive. You start with people's pronouns and not with their names and who they are. This whole pronoun problem is a big one, and people have uncritically done things and not pumped the brakes on it, and they think that they're being kind and compassionate when they're really feeding into delusions. When they're really harming people, when they're harming the very populations that they say that they're trying to uplift and center, and all these other terms that are used. And so the way to do that is to have standards that are not rooted in racialization and gender identity, and to have developmentally appropriate standards, that do focus on teaching about real history, right? Because that's another criticism that's often lobbed. They say, if you're not teaching, this way, then you're not teaching authentically, and all of these other kinds of terms that are just, it's balderdash, it's ridiculous. It's not true, and not enough people have stood up and said, like, hey, what are we doing here? And we're actually causing harm, to the very kids that we're trying to help. And we're making our classrooms less inclusive and less welcoming, actually, by doing some of the things we're doing, by demanding that students identify with race check boxes and with gender check boxes, and that we conflate sex and gender in the classroom. Like, there's just so many things that are happening, and it is all related and tied to that toxic ideology. And so part of my life work and my purpose in this time is to, bring people's awareness to that, to give them a naming around it, and to give them tools and resources to push back. And to go in and say, to their school boards, hey, what are we doing here? I understand you all are talking about social justice. Is it critical social justice that you all are pushing? Are you working more from a classical perspective? What's the end game? We're talking about social justice. There must be an end goal that we have. What end goal are you pushing for? Are you pushing for equality of outcomes? Are you pushing for equality of opportunity? And, and be transparent with people and let them know what you're up to, and so that they can, let their money and their taxes and their shoes do the walking in terms of school choice. So that's where I'm at is with trying to help teachers and educators to choose alternate pathways, and administrators as well. And you can't just criticize and say like what you're doing is wrong and it's harmful and it's just bad and you guys are just like, oh, evil. That only gets so far, yelling at each other and screaming about what's wrong and why it's bad. But actually coming up with curricular solutions or applications that can be made, like the Empowered Social Justice Resources or other ways to engage these topics in a way that it's really going to involve retraining of teachers, providing support networks for teachers, because that's something that the extremist progressive left wing folks have really done well is wrap around teachers. You have these Black Lives Matter at School weeks. You have other things that teachers do where they, feel very supported. They feel like they're part of a community. They get validation from what they're doing. We have to create alternative structures, I believe, so that people can celebrate, moving in a different direction, and in one that is still, looking at history, looking at what has taken place, and not negating the progress that's been made, because that's another part of the postmodernist critical, way of viewing the world. It's to really say we've made no progress. There's like a lot of pessimism and nihilism in it. We've made no progress. We haven't done enough. We're going to just burn it down. But no one ever talks about what happens when we dismantle everything and burn it all down. What's next? And what's next really is the advancement of communism and socialism in all aspects of our lives. I don't think some people understand the danger because it hasn't been taught to a whole generation, like the differences between, a republic, a democracy, and a communist or socialist system. Those things aren't being taught in school. Instead, we just have these rewritten narratives and this talking about, your pronouns and, sexualization of young people, racialization of young people. And when you go from kindergarten on up through, your college education, being told that you are this or that, or you identify as this, or you're from your ancestors did this, and now you must atone for it. Just imagine the danger and the damage. You can see it that's happening with our youth as a result of receiving this kind of education. And so, but I remain hopeful. I'm someone who's a hopeful person. So I think that if there are alternative pathways and people willing to just get out there and embrace and uplift teachers, I don't seek to attack my fellow educators. I just want us to be really intentional about what we're doing, aware of what we're doing and the impacts that it's having on young people and communities. And right now, many of the things, the default perspective in so many places is a critical social justice ideology. And it's unquestioned. I like how Helen Pluckrose calls it a gospel, because it's something you must not question, you must accept as true. And there's almost a religious fervor to it. So one of the other values of liberal democratic values is secularism, and this religiosity that gender identity ideology and race ideology has taken on in our culture. We need to address it because our enemies, foreign and domestic, are using, our marketplace for free ideas against us at this time, and they're completely just subverting all things and doing what they seek to do, which is to dismantle and destroy. And it's being very effective, unfortunately, with the complicity of the mass media, which I've learned a lot about from having my story get into the mass media spectacle of that. Quite saddening as someone who used to teach media literacy. I'm going to have to revise my courses because our media is totally ideologically captured, and it's really sickening and saddening to see. I'm sorry, you got me talking. Sorry.
What did you think about Elon Trump interview?
I thought it was wonderful. That was so inspiring to hear people talking about getting us back to our roots as Americans. I wish they had touched on education a little bit more. Maybe there'll be a part two, because I'm a little biased, but I just think that education is something that's so central to everything. I did hear mention of dismantling the Department of Education, which I 100% support. I think it's long overdue. It never should have been established in the first place. if I had a chance to serve in a cabinet, that would be one of the first things I would do. And as people cry and whine about it, I wouldn't feel any remorse for it, because it's what's needed for our nation to advance. It never should have been established in the first place, and all it's done is wreak havoc. And this emphasis on standardized testing and standardized teaching, especially standardized teaching that's rooted in critical social justice ideology. We've really just gone a step too far, and it's time for someone to get in there and pump the brakes or bring a hammer to it, and move us to where we should be instead. And we should not have a Department of Education. That's my personal take on it. Okay, either I've terrified everyone by what I said, or yeah. So
no, that's just random processing. No, that just happens. Like when you drop a really good take, and there's not an instant response. That means that we're just kind of processing, and we haven't an actual conversation. Because I feel like normally when you have a space or any kind of public setting, everybody has a bunch of talking points that they want to address, and they just come out of the gate with that right away, and they're just waiting for every opportunity to kind of go immediately towards those talking points, right? But here we're just basically having an actual conversation. All of this is improvised. All of this is just a conversation, right? So yeah, sometimes there are periods of silence where people are trying to process what to kind of come up with next. I mean, it's a lot of heavy data that you just brought here. So yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, really cool, and yeah, definitely come up more frequently if you want to be frequent speaker, because that's really cool.
Cool, thank you. I'm more of a lurker and a learner and a synthesizer, so I do a lot of listening. So I'll go back on mute now and do my sponge stuff that I do.
Sure. I mean, it's awesome. Yeah, thank you for straightening things out for me there. I just had no idea why there was this weird connection with the Palestinian protesters and communism and their disdain for the DNC. I was that totally blew my mind. So yeah, thank you. Also, quick question. What do you think of this show? I've seen you be around here quite frequently. What do you make of this? Honest review.
Oh, I love it. I'm someone, I love to learn about, different things. And when I can actually join a space and hear from so many different experts in different fields, like today's discussion of ice cream making and butter making, things that I wouldn't just come across. I'm someone who nerds out on stuff like that. I love learning about, a wide variety of things. But I may be an anomaly. I realize that, but yeah, it's something that I really like, and that's why I keep joining in again, and probably spending an excessive amount of time. But I like that, and you all have great senses of humor, and the knowledge base is just incredible. So yeah, thank you for holding this space.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's great to have a good impact. So yeah, it's definitely what we're aiming for with the conversation that we're having every day.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Great points. Actually, quick follow-up. So, what would in terms of Department of Education, what would you suggest in place of it?
Well, I really think the idea that was stated during, or maybe I was just wishful or willful thinking, returning those responsibilities to the states. I think that's a right move, and something that President Trump had mentioned he would be interested in doing. I haven't heard any other candidates talk about that. I haven't heard Cornel West or Harris Walls or any of those people talk about that. And so that's the only candidate I've heard so far with the same, vision of returning the responsibilities for education to states and local education agencies. That's where it always should have been. And we've really tried to centralize it and made some wrong moves. And I think even the Title IX, recent things that happened around that with the Biden-Harris administration were really harmful and toxic for schools and for young people and athletes and so forth, and young women as well. So I just think that returning that responsibility to the state, the feds shouldn't have never been involved in it. It's a fairly new thing here. I think the late 1970s or 1979 was when it was established in America. And we see in every instance where we see departments of education, that's our ministries of education, it's something that I associate with, old Soviet reign and Soviet rule, communist, socialist types of governments have those kinds of departments. And they seek to centralize, education in that way. And so that the recipients of that education become wards of the state. And I don't think we need that in America. And I think we see where it's taken us. It's taken us places where we don't want to be. And, we're now one of the lowest competitors in terms of, global education and how that all looks. We've lost a lot of the progress that we made since that department was established. So to me, it's just a useless aspect of the bureaucracy, a lot of bloat, a lot of wasted money, and a place that the federal government never should have stepped into to begin with.
Sure. This I think is interesting because you mentioned a point with funding. I think there will be, okay, so let's imagine the hypothetical scenario that Trump in fact wins, and there will be this government efficiency commission, which basically seeks to do garbage collection for laws, stuff that shouldn't exist, and just basically making governance more efficient, thereby also effective. I think funding would definitely be a part of that. Like, what do you think of this? What do you think of the government efficiency commission that's been proposed by Elon and will probably be applied under administration led by Donald Trump, if it were to come to pass?
That would be beautiful, and I think it's wonderful that people have stepped up and said, they're willing to assist with it. And, because sometimes great ideas come up and no one's willing to get in there and do the work. So I really appreciated that Elon Musk did say, hey, I think this is a great idea. I'd be willing to help, donate my time, expertise, to it, because I think more of that type of leadership is needed. And I think it's necessary. It's something that would be helpful to America as a whole to have an efficiency, commission to take a look at, what's how funds are being spent and are they being maximally spent, and what is the accountability process to taxpayers, because we've really gone away from that, and it's like this the system of Congress and so forth has its own, almost it seems like a uniparty sometimes in the way that it functions. So having another layer of transparency, accountability would be key. And really, I'm going to say something that's not very popular, but I think there should be term limits applied to every level of government, like local school boards, Congress, the House of Representatives. Some of these people just sit there too long, and they become like a swamp of corruption, and just they're not really serving the people anymore. They're serving themselves, and their lobbyists and their donors. And so term limits would really help a great deal. Nobody should be sitting in those offices, for 20, 30, 40 years. And kind of just taking up space and really limiting capacity for innovation because they're just sitting there on their rumps for decades, for far too long. So I'd really love to see something like that take place, in addition to the efficiency commission, just term limits and shaking up the Cracker Jack box every now and then would be helpful. Get some new prizes.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, because I feel like sometimes there's a bit of an issue when you have someone who is the president of a country but doesn't understand certain issues, like say a very prevalent one. Well, let's imagine you have a person who is president and they don't understand the concept of how AI works, right? What it is, what it does, where it comes from, how it's made, how to legislate it potentially, all the compute level where to not legislate it so as to like develop it more effectively, how it could potentially be a weapon. All these things, it's very essential to understand because AI itself, which is at this moment still only just kind of an advanced chatbot in a sense, but also really good at sorting. This is something that, if a president doesn't understand what this is, I kind of feel like it's almost as if that person would be unfit to lead, because this is a very, very pressing issue that it is going to fundamentally and is already fundamentally changing the way that we literally perceive reality based on the things that it's able to do, especially when it comes to data processing of any kind, both be it visual, be it text-based, all of this, right? These are technically still databases. They're like really good at sorting. They're not really intelligent, so to speak. So it's kind of deceiving to say it's like intelligent. It is artificial, but it's almost like a semi-intelligent database. I kind of see it as a closed world browser with an attitude. So that's kind of an issue, which is also why you have things like Search GPT, which kind of like basically handle the query end of things for you, which is, I think, going to be a problem in the future. But that's besides the point. I think like someone who doesn't understand how these technologies work, that's, I think, probably even a threat to the existence of an entire country for that, because like you'd not be taking certain actions that need to be taken in order to effectively utilize and also manage this up and coming technology that's taken over practically almost every aspect of our lives up to this point. So yeah, term limits for sure. It's like my long-winded kind of rationalization for a term limit should be a thing, because like you can't be like 80-something years old, and if you cannot demonstrate that you understand the world enough, then how can you like actually lead a country? That's kind of an issue, right? I mean, of course, I'm saying there's some people out there that can definitely still operate and functionally understand a lot of critical information in that age. I mean, I know a veteran on here who is he was I think he's like 80 years old at this point, I think 81 or 82,
yeah.
And he has figured out not only how to use X and all manner of social media, he somehow uses Linux. It's an 81-year-old dude who fucking figured out how to use Linux. What? Like someone like that, for instance, I'd say that's like potentially an exception, right? If someone like that, it's very exceptional. That person understands how this kind of technology works. So that would be, I'm not saying that everyone who's of a certain age doesn't know how to process new types of information. I mean, that guy is clearly an example of where that is an exception, right? Where there's potential, but how often does that translate into people in politics, right? Probably not that much, because that type of person and who this veteran is, he had to deal with a lot of new technologies, kind of trained his brain to be able to utilize a lot of new things in various scenarios that are predictable. So he's kind of trained for that. But what exactly does a politician do, right? They have to deal with certain types of legislation most of the time. They have to read a lot of stuff. They have to kind of listen and network with different people. And then what does that look like after a few years? What are you actually adapting to, Do you actually understand what you're talking about most of the time? Is that just what you're saying because everybody else is telling you to say it? There's a lot of interesting things that we should probably ask questions of. Maybe there's like some competency issues on my end here, but like that's kind of how I see it. And if that's wrong, please do correct. Man, my DMs are blowing up. I get some really weird questions. Huh, that's funny. What do you think of what is your understanding of AI? Tabia.
Oh, I was sitting here going, is that to me?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to know your thing. What was your conception of it? Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm someone who likes to think I'm a tech person, but my husband often tells me that I'm really not, because I can't build a computer. So So AI, I don't know. I've played around with a few tools, like from a teacher perspective, like ChatGPT and things like that. But there is some concerns around it because I mean it's not generating itself. There's a human that's inputting things. So I think we have to watch for that. But yeah, I'm basically saying I have a very limited understanding of AI. That's why I'm kind of in this space, learning from you all who seem to have a greater grasp of it. It's exciting. I think it's something I played around with some audio AI programs and like been able to generate like music and songs and just from like a simple prompt, which I think is pretty fantastic. I'm excited about that kind of thing, but I also, I don't know, I'm excited, but also cautious, I would say, because like any tool, right, it could be used for great things or it could be used for destructive things. So I think anytime there's a new innovation, that people don't know very much about, it's something to look at. And to be aware of, the like affordances, the benefits and the potential constraints, and maybe even dangers, who knows, right? I mean, but everything's dangerous, so.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the potential danger with AI, the way I see it, it's just the responsibility of the person. I think personally that you should have, or at least the AI should have the freedom to tell you literally anything that you ask it a question for. So say for instance, I mean, like there are a lot of cases where people use this AI and they say, oh my God, how irresponsible to not censor the thing. And I'm like, dude, if you are going to use it to generate a fucked up output, that means that you're fucked up, not it, right? It is just basically an endless well of potential. And you're just the being that is tapping it in a very particular manner. Say for instance, a very good metaphor for this is, and I have multiple to kind of like pick from, but I think a good metaphor is alcohol, right? Alcohol, I think, is kind of negative in a sense. But I can use this as kind of I can kind of paint a positive picture with this brush. So I think alcohol itself, if you were to make it yourself, if you don't know what you're doing, you could potentially kill yourself, right? It is very dangerous because the purity of the alcohol that you generate from a home brew is not well understood. You could just be drinking this kind of stuff that could potentially even kill you, right? Because you would drink alcohol, and if you overdose, that's an issue. You all know what happens there. But if you do it just right, and if you don't drink too much of it, then it's actually a great recreational substance. Of course, it's not the best, but it is one which is good for like unwinding, I suppose. People do this, and I understand why. But this is kind of like how uncensored AI works, right? Or even better still is a metaphor about chemistry. Like imagine you have chemistry and you understand how it all works. You're actually able to do a lot of interesting things. Like for instance, you could basically, with a decent knowledge, a decent background in chemistry, you could basically go into a random store, see all of the household items that you can buy, and kind of think of what you could do to these household items to create very specific types of compounds. Let's say, for instance, one of those being meth. Now, of course, it's a very abstract example, but this is one of those examples that I think could even scale, right? The compounds themselves are completely inert on their own. They don't have any harm, probably as like chlorine or whatever else and whatnot, but you can make something really bad of them, right? Now, should we limit the purchase of these products? Probably not. It is basically the issue with a person. At the same time, should we limit the access and knowledge to chemistry? Absolutely the fuck we shouldn't, because we need freedom in that regard as well, right? So there should be freedom on all these levels. If you choose to use your knowledge for bad and to then say, make meth, then you yourself should suffer the consequences. There is laws for this, right? If you get caught, of course, because you'll always get caught at some point, you will then suffer the consequences of your actions, And the same thing also, I think, applies to kitchen utensils like knives. You imagine you have a kitchen knife. This thing can cause a lot of damage. If somebody can take this and go through London and start stabbing people, like this actually had happened at one point. Or you can use it to cut your fucking onions. You don't need to use it to stab people. You could use it to stab people. Does this not mean that every single knife should be blunt to a certain extent so that not major harm could be done to other people just because some people have decided to be irresponsible with a fucking kitchen knife? I personally don't think so, right? So if I ask the AI to do some bullshit, to do some really fucked up stuff, I want it to give me the answer to that fucked up ass question, because the responsibility for what is done with that output lies solely with me, as I am the thing that prompted it in such a way to give us that output. The same thing I've also seen with these weird fucking Nazi images and all this garbage that's been circulating on the timeline, along with people complaining about it. It's like, dude, you have literally asked this thing to give you this output, and you're complaining about the fact that it literally did exactly what you asked it to. You should be happy that it did this, because that shows you how capable it is and how it is kind of free of limitations. I mean, a lot of fucked up images have come out, but it doesn't tell you anything about the AI in terms of, you know, how bad it is. It tells you something about how good it is, and tells you something about how weird and potentially flawed another person's mindset is. Because what is the first thing that you do? You could generate all kinds of cool stuff with this AI, but instead what you've defaulted to doing is, hey, I'm going to generate an image of fucking Trump and Kamala sitting in a plane heading towards the Twin Towers. What the fuck? You know, nobody asks this, nobody wants this, nobody wants to see this, but for some reason you sat down there and you said, hey, I'm going to start destroying everyone's freedom because I can't be responsible for it myself. So I'm going to generate this bullshit ass image and say it is completely irresponsible to unleash this thing on reality. That's so fucking stupid. Like, I hate to say it, it's completely fucking stupid. You know? I don't get this. I personally don't get this, right? You can have like any kind of argument against this and you have to say, oh, there are laws around this and there's this and there's that. I'm like, yeah, there's limitations on everything. Of course there are. But you should have the freedom to act. You know, it's just like saying, I'm going to take all your fucking guns. You know, it's the same shit. The gun itself does nothing. It's just it does something bad in the wrong hands. You know, it's an inert machine. And AI is just the exact same fucking thing. AI can be used to do anything. It can be used to, say, rewrite a program to have less lines in it so it's less bulky, because code is shit these days most of the time, right? Most, of course, talented examples of people just doing this with their brains more effectively than AI ever could, but like, imagine that as an example, for instance, right? You can use it to do this, or you can use it to write malware. You know, there's a difference. You can use it to do both those things. You know, does it mean that it should be restricted from writing malware? Probably not. But the restrictions shouldn't apply in this case, because another person could say, okay, here's the thing. I need to build this thing that is super secure to defend against very particular types of attacks. Do you know what these attacks usually are? And how can you write code that basically defends against these attacks, or at least doesn't even have these attack vectors open? If it doesn't know how to do this kind of stuff, like say, for instance, generate fucking outputs for malware, how do you expect it to be generating something for you that doesn't have security flaws in it? You know, that's another example. Because the more complexity you have within a system, and that complexity goes without reason, the worse the machine actually becomes. And that's where limitations actually lead you, right? So if you had no limitations at all on what it could output, I think it would actually be a better thing, because at the end of the day, we ourselves are responsible for our own outputs, because we ourselves are responsible for our queries to this thing. You know, that's simply as it is. I think responsibility itself should be redirected back to the person and the individual. I mean, look, you have a huge amount of activism around individuality. So why don't we just go full send on this and say every individual should have responsibility? I don't understand why not. There is no case that you can make against this. Maybe there is like a few, and I would debunk it instantly, but it doesn't matter. I think everybody should have the freedom to like fuck up. Because that's what freedom is all about. You know, freedom is all about fucking around and finding out. And sometimes you find out in a bad way. Sometimes you find out in a good way. It just kind of depends on what you want to fuck around with. You know, you can lose all your money in the stock market. Does that mean that you have to be limited to like spending? No, because it's your fucking money, right? Potentially, I mean, you could say, okay, you should be responsible with your money, because if you spend all of your money that you need to pay the rent, when you need to pay your food, then you don't have any money left over to pay any of that stuff, right? That's probably bad. But you're responsible enough to understand this. There you go. Right? That's like that is actual liberty for me, I think. Right? This is why actually for me, AI itself and limitations around it are a completely different thing. I think it's a complete failure of logic to say that it needs to be limited. Right? And you can say, oh, well, then the malware is going to be written more effectively. It's going to be everywhere. And this script kiddie is going to break the internet. Do you seriously think that this isn't happening already? Do you seriously think that there's no internet forums and shit like this? I mean, really? Are we going to forget what anonymous is? Are we going to forget all this stuff that's been busted recently? Do you think that's like not happening anymore? What about this massive botnets that everybody keeps closing off? Do you think that doesn't exist anymore? No, it's worse now. But it's not because of AI. It's always been worse because it's the internet. You know, everything's everywhere. Somebody can literally send you a little fucking script in a text, and that's it. It's done, you know? You go on fucking Discord, somebody sends you a .txt file with a whole ass script in it, maybe an entire library. Like fucking some dude sends you like 3 megabytes of a .txt. That's insane. Like the amount of data in that is insane, right? So that's your issue. That's your issue right there. The problem is already is already there and is going to keep existing. And I think it's a good thing that these problems exist because they allow us to make things better. Because I think in every system, if there is something that challenges it, there's a potential for innovation. Like for instance, with your immune system or like the way your body just works in general. If you want to exercise, basically what you're doing is you're tearing down existing muscle for it to then grow back better. That is literally the concept by which the body operates. And this is the concept by which basically all biology kind of operates, right? And so like evolution itself, it's just kind of in everything. And it's in buildings too. It's everything. You kind of like build, like you say, oh, here it's a shit building. Let me take it down and build something better in its place, because we like learned from the fact, okay, probably we want to use a different type of concrete, mix it this way. Probably we want to make sure that our sand doesn't come from the fucking ocean because the salt is inside of it, something like that. These realizations, these aspects of our reality, we understand what we're doing. This is good because there's been struggle. And the same thing also I think applies to AI. This is like a long, drawn out conversation about like what applies with AI, I think, which is kind of probably a bit confusing, I think. But in and of itself, that's kind of how I see that.
Tabia, question from aliens. What do you think would be an appropriate way to re-educate people who have been gaslit into believing that these methods are normal, and how would you approach retraining adults and young adults into understanding the problems with communism?
Well, there's definitely a lot of, I would say, miseducation and misinformation that's been very intentional. So undoing that requires getting us back into the basic skills of like critical thinking, looking at primary source documents, actually learning, about various systems of government, learning about ideologies. What are the various ideologies of race? Because in American society, and if you go outside of America, you can see this a lot with people who say, like, I don't even just understand why you all are so race obsessed. It's become part of the culture here, and this acceptance of certain ideologies of race and as race as something that's real, besides, the human race. And so that's something that's needed to be done in America, understanding that, this whole construct of race is not something that's settled. Not everyone thinks that it's something that's real. Not everyone views it in the same way. I think that's part of education that's missing, because, when you go through your educational process as a teacher, in the training that we have, you're taught that race is real. And also now teachers are being taught that gender identity is real. And it's often conflated with sex, biological sex. And that's been very intentional in terms of policy, in terms of, our discourse that we have from day to day. So unpacking those ideologies, letting and showing that there are different ways to view race. There are different ways to understand, some of the things that we've been taught as truth, and to be able to unpack that and step back from it and look at it objectively is something that's key. So that's something that I would suggest, is getting at those base levels in terms of if people want to teach about race, fine, at least do it from a perspective where you're actually teaching and educating, where you're saying that there are various ways of understanding race and philosophy of the race and beliefs about race, not that just there's one and what we say is, the truth and nobody can question. I think that that's a big problem that we have, the orthodoxy and the authoritarianism that many, teachers are using in their discourse. And the teacher unions, sadly, have really been ideologically captured themselves. So, in previous times, you could count on your union to protect your right to academic freedom, or, your ability to teach your students so that everybody has the freedom to learn. Well, that's not the case anymore. Now we have these unions that have really just bought into the whole critical social justice ideology. They do not protect their members who don't march in lockstep with that ideology. In fact, they'll be some of the people, stabbing you in the back and pushing you out. I sadly discovered in my journey in the California community college system. So we have to address these big teacher unions. We have to get alternative teacher training programs and supports, and that's part of my work and things that I'm working on. And we have to also just make sure that we're, really addressing critical thinking and bringing that into our teaching and learning processes. It's not there right now. Right now, we have a system of indoctrination in many cases, from pre-K all the way up through, our research universities. And that has to change. And we need to bring in viewpoint diversity, bring back objective pluralism, and different ways of looking at things, and really bringing forth information, not telling our students what to think, but instead focusing on how to think and how to understand things better. How do we learn? And I think that's something that's missing in the current system that we need to get back to.
Thanks. And actually, a follow-up from aliens as well. If you get rid of the Department of Education, what would happen if states decided to adopt curriculum that was straight false? Like deciding a fully theistic curriculum.
Oh, if states decided to adopt that, I mean, that would be the will of the people in that state, right? And then people have the will and the ability to move and to impact and to influence their states as well. So that's why I think it's just so much more appropriate to put the onus back on the states for things like that, for education, and let it be something that is decided by local communities. Every state in America, is different. There are different things that are focused on, in different areas and regions, and things that are important to different areas and regions. And I think to ignore that beautiful diversity, of thinking and of opportunity that exists within the states itself, it was a big mistake to do that. And we saw all of our, if you want to look at test scores, the national education, the NAEP scores, dive bombed after that, after the Department of Education came in and started mucking around in education and attempting to centralize it. And that's been a death knell for us. We need to back away from that and return that responsibility to states and local education agencies. And we'll start to see, some that are going to be innovating and some that are not, and they will have to adapt to the conditions that will emerge. I strongly believe in that. I think that when there is competition, when there is a free marketplace of ideas, those that have something to stand on rise to the top, and those that don't fail, and they fail miserably. But when you have a federal agency, a federal body pushing ideologies onto schools, I'm talking about things like DEI, and some of the other harmful things that have been advanced, really rapidly by the Biden-Harris administration, and those before it that they're similarly aligned. We see what's taking place now as a result of that, and it's not good for America. It's not good for our youth. It's not good for our future. And so I think that it's important for us to. I don't want to use words that are. I'm trying to be diplomatic, and that's a tough one for me. We need to just cut the head off of the dragon, if you will, and that's what it is right now. And it's become way too overbearing, way too powerful, and it's changing the shape and function of us as a society and as a country. And it's become way overblown, and it needs to be, tamped down on, and the states and state leadership and local leadership needs to take the reins in terms of education of the youth. It should not be decided by a federal body or federal government. It was never intended to be that way. And so, and we see where it's taking us now. It's not someplace that we want to go. So, yeah.
Hi guys, thanks for having me up. Tabia, I was just reading your story as we were talking. Sorry to hear about you losing your job. Um, I was wondering, I work in education also, and I sort of, talking to a lot of the kids, the students, I think a lot of them seem to buy into this. I'm over here in the UK. A lot of them seem to, you hear them talking, oh, this, you say something about man or woman, and they'll say, oh, there's no such thing, or this kind of thing. Or there's some kids, I think, that seem to go the other way, which is like more on the extreme side of things, like the Andrew Tate sort of side of stuff, which I think has its own problems. I just see there's a lot of extremism, or extreme thinking on both sides. I totally agree about the critical thinking being brought in. Would be fantastic. There's a fantastic professor and student clip where they talk about J.K. Rowling. I don't know if you guys saw that, and the student is sort of saying, "Oh yeah, J.K. Rowling is obviously some terrible, person," and the professor just takes him up on that and sort of says, "Oh, where's the proof in that? Okay, let's get up these tweets and let's read them together." And they realize that, he sort of sees that he's just bought into the thinking. I was just wondering, did you see any hope for the new generations? And, that maybe that they'll get out of this sort of, no gender DEI stuff. Do you see much hope?
Yes, I do definitely. And I'll give an example, Donald, of, just work that I've done around race ideology. So when I discovered that, like, my mentors and people who had taught me and, all the training that I had received as an educator had really just been full of lies, and had really been directing me towards seeing race in a certain way as, like, race being socially constructed, being something that's real, all of these other things that are just taught as the gospel. When I saw and found out, no, there's actually, like, many ways of viewing race, and, like, different ideologies of race and understanding race and different ways that people view it, I was so excited about that I wanted to share it with everyone, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like an important piece of, like, education, a focus of it right now, at least in America. I think over in the UK a little bit too, starting or already. But when I discovered that I was miseducated and that there were various ways of seeing it, I shared that. And that was part of what my tenure review committee, they said I was leading people to danger, that I was a destructive person, that I was ruining equity progress and so forth. But the students, when I would teach about ideologies of race and that there's, different ways of viewing race and different lenses that can be used, and that it impacts how we, view each other and so forth, they were so excited to hear that, because no one had ever told them that. It's the same as me, right? As an educator, right? I hadn't been told that. And they were like, wow, okay, there's different ways to view this, like different, even like whole philosophies and fields of, like, thinking on this topic that no one's ever talked to us about. Like, why isn't anyone telling us that? And I got a lot of thanks from the students, because they started to realize in the California community college system, at least, they were like, oh my gosh, we've only been taught, like, in this neo-racist or neo-reconstructionist view of race. We've never learned that there's, like, an ideology of racelessness. We've never learned that there's all these other different ways of viewing and understanding race. And they were like, thank you, because it gives us some questions that we can ask our professors, when they're telling us things as fact. We can now, like, kind of challenge that, and we can go learn more about, the different ways that our neighbors are thinking and so forth. And I think that that's so important for people to be able to do. So the students were very excited about it. Those who bought into these like toxic ideologies, like the gender identity ideology and, the neo-racist ideology, way of seeing race, they view it as dangerous because they don't want people to think. They need compliant, subservient folks who don't question, who are foot soldiers, who do as they're told without questioning, don't look to the left or right, look straight ahead. The leader tells us what to think. So that's kind of what's happening, in the systems. But I think there's great hope for the youth. And the more young people that do hear, about these different ways of thinking, and come to learn that they've been lied to or taught wrong or intentionally misled, when they awaken, it's just a beautiful thing to see. And it doesn't necessarily mean that their opinion may change or even their actions may change, but at least they have more information. Right? If you want to be a hateful, divisive person, you can at least say like, hey, I'm a critical social justice ideologue and I'm digging in and, this is who I am. This is what our district stands for. This is what our school believes in. We don't make space for classical social justice ideology. If you want to learn about that, don't come here. Like, they should just be open about it. Just tell everybody what you're doing, and let them make a choice. And if you're going to create a space, so for me, I'm not saying, I want to be clear at all, I'm not saying like, oh, no one should teach critical social justice ideology. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. That would be an illiberal position to take. So I'm taking a position of, hey, if people want to believe in that and do that, fine. But also make space for people who want to take a more classical approach to social justice, and make space for people who don't want to focus on that at all. They just want to learn a discipline or a trade. So make space for all is what I'm saying. And right now we have a condition in American education, at least higher education, K through 12, where there is no space made for all. And where if you even show an inkling that you're questioning a critical social justice ideology, which is the default in many spaces, you're cast out, you're shunned, you're, basically your career is ruined. You're pushed out of communities. Lifelong friends you've had may never speak to you again. That's the conditions that we have here in America right now. So I'm just trying to open up the space, make room for other viewpoints, and put forth some standards for K through 12 that are rooted in liberal democratic values instead of being rooted in anti-American communist socialist values. So those are the differences. And I think the more sunlight we shine, the more we talk about these things with each other and we have the language to kind of identify it. Because I know for me, when I was going through what I went through in the California community college system, if I had access to a lot of the things I know now, like hindsight, whatever, it would have been so much more impactful. But now I just have an opportunity to share it with other people and the situations that they're in. So hopefully, they don't get so tangled up, because there's a lot of appeal to emotionality, the subjectivity. Those are like core principles of that approach. And I'm someone who's always more rationally oriented, thinking oriented. And that's what I've always shared with my students as well. So to find, myself in this nightmare of a situation where people were like attacking me and bullying and intimidating me, just for, bringing people together to talk about things and trying to identify points of commonality and, trying to explore things and figure things out together, like for that to be ruled a danger or like something crazy that I was doing. It's just what I've always done as an educator. It was like, I didn't think I was doing anything like unusual, or like bizarre. It was just like, I was just being my teacher self that I've always been, for the past however many decades that I've been teaching. Like, this is just what I've always done. And I thought everyone was doing that. It was like a rude awakening to discover, the state of things, and to see some of the things that are now in the mainstream media. You're seeing some of the things that happened, when I was back in like 2020, 2021. That's when all these things started happening for me in the California community college space, and the realization that, we were using words like social justice, equity, equality, but we were all meaning totally different things about them. And then people not wanting me to bring people together to talk about these various definitions and to try to say, hey, even if we have divergent or diverse, views of these topics, we can still work together. Like it was a no. It was, we don't want that. And if you're bringing people together to do that, like you're wrong. You're dangerous. You're a dirty Zionist. You're a bitch. You're a this or that. All the terrible words that were used that I'd never heard teachers talking to each other like that. And then here's the crazy part. So I decided not to. I could have resigned and just like taken that off my resume and gone on to my next position. Actually, like two of my mentors at that time told me, like, Lee, this is just what I go by, Lee, which is my last name. Lee, you should just like resign. Don't put it on your resume. Just move on. Like, forget this. And I'm like, no. Like, these people are acting like gangsters. They're like literal gangsters and bullies. Like, I messed with their turf, and like they're gonna bring me down and put me in my place. Like, that was a big no for many reasons. Like, I have problems with stuff like that. Like, I've never been like much of a conformist or a joiner. Like, when I was invited to join a socialist network when I first started there, and I was like, oh no, I don't like really join things. Like, no, I'm good. I was viewed as the enemy from that point on. A little did I know, right? And so just seeing environments like that, I'm like, they've done this before, and they're going to keep doing it. So I went public, like in the hugest way possible, and things just kind of fell into place where I was like in mass media even, and it was like, they didn't silence me. They killed my job. I have no health care and all this stuff, whatever, so they were successful at that. They pushed me out where I was actually making progress, with people on the campus. And I had people coming out to like our meetings who had never been involved before with the office because they were known as being woke. And I'm not calling them that. That was their term they used for themselves. It was a label that they were very proud of. And then I discovered what that meant and so forth. But it's like, I chose not to be silent because the risk was too great and it just felt much larger than me. And I'm glad I did, because so many people contacted me from like all over the US, people who were tenured. Like, my whole goal, right, was getting tenure. Like, that was the end of my, professional career. I got my doctorate, so one day I could get tenure, be a tenured professor and so forth. But they killed that dream for me, but they made my voice reach so many more people. And then to hear from other people, like in other places, that not even the state, not even California, because we're known as kind of like a crazy state. Like, people are always like, oh, California, you guys are just weird, out there, whatever. So we get discounted a lot, but like people in all over America, in librarians, clergy members, lawyers, all kinds of people reached out to me and they were like, this is happening where I work. This is something that's going on here too. So it wasn't an anomaly. I came to realize like how massively these efforts were of impacting American society and all aspects of it, even the medical profession, and the training that our medical professionals are getting, really just been completely subverted, ideologically subverted by critical social justice ideology. There's no focus on like competency in medicine, in education, in any subject anymore. They've all been overtaken. And so just realizing the magnitude of it, I'm thankful. I mean, I'm sad that it all happened, but I'm thankful for the opportunity to be a positive contributor, right? And to reach even more people with helping them better understand what's taking place, at least, from my limited understanding of it and what I've been able to figure out, and sharing that with more people than I ever would have been able to, reach had I just quietly resigned and, not put it on my resume as I was, suggested to do. There was just too much happening there, and too much hatred. And the anti-Semitism was real deep in the California community college system. And that was something that I was, again, ruled an enemy for bringing in speakers and commentators to teach people about Jewish culture and anti-Semitism. I was viewed public enemy number one for that too. So it all goes hand in hand with this critical social justice ideology. It really wants all of us to view each other as victims or oppressors at all times. And how do they get these victim and oppressor groups? Who knows, right? I mean, I would ask questions sometimes. sometimes when I was told, because we had a community group that came in, and if I'm talking too much, someone just like mute me and be like, shut up. because there's like so much that happened there. It's like ridiculous. But like we had a group come in and they were concerned about our Jewish students, and they were like, they put out in writing to us like all the things that they were concerned about, why there was no longer a Jewish student union. And this is pre-October 7th, right? This is 2021, 2022. And when I took it back to my supervising dean and my office mates, you know, they gave us some recommendations. They were like, oh, you guys have a website. It says like standing against racism. Like, could you please just put like, you know, like we stand against anti-Semitism too. The response I got when we got into our team meeting, and I was like, well, what are we going to do about this? You know, we're going to update the website. They were like, no, we're not. I was like, why? And they were like, Jewish people are white oppressors. Our job here is to decenter whiteness. I was like, what? You know, like this is a public school. Like I had never heard people like talking like that or promoting hatred. And they were like serious, and including like the supervising dean. And they were like, nope, we're not going to do that. And I was like, wait, I was like, hey, hold on. Like, can you tell me, what do you mean like Jewish people are white oppressors? I was like, do you know anything about Jewish history and culture? Like, do you know about the richness of the Jewish diaspora, that there are many different types of Jewish people? That, you know, and they were like, it doesn't matter. That's how it is. I was like, well, could you tell me where you're getting that from? Like, give me a citation. I'm someone who like, I like to cite. I like to read references. I like to look, I like to learn. And they could never give me a reference for it. I was just told, nope, that's not what we're doing. We're not going to do it. I said, hey, let's just update the website. You know, it's a simple thing. Like, they'll give us the text. We can like cut and paste it. You don't even have to do anything. You're just putting, we stand against anti-Semitism. They're like, we'll never do that. I was like, why? And they said, because Zionism is racism. I'm like, what? It's just mind blowing. And so, and when I would want to dialogue more and like unpack it and like get some sources around it, I was just told, this is just how we roll here. Like statements like that, that's just what we do. We're not doing that. I said, well, okay, I can see we need some Jewish inclusion and anti-Semitism education here. So I want to develop a program and bring it to our school. All we ever bring is anti-Zionist speakers here, sponsored by our office, and I'm the quote director of it now. So I would like to open up, you know, the dialogue and bring in some other speakers. I was told, if you do that, you're going to be on your own. You won't have budgetary support. We're not going to support that. So these are the people that I was working with, and the hatred that like burns inside of these people is just unconscionable. And it's not just at that place. It's in many places, and that's the status quo. And if you go in and you try to bring in other speakers, you know, you become labeled, you know, it's not popular, you become censored. I was censored. My events were moved from the college calendar. It was just a living nightmare for a couple of years. But you know what? I was there for a purpose. And I even told my tenure review committee at one point, they were saying, you should just resign, you should step down. I said, you know what? No, I'm not resigning. Do you know how long it took me to get a tenure track position, which was literally like decades of rejections and like hundreds of rejection letters and other fun stuff. Like this was my first like actual tenure track. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere, bro. Like I'm here to be here. Like, and I'm actually making strides with people who never come to this office who were afraid because they say that you all call them racists and transphobes and all these other things. You know, you name call people instead of actually engaging them in authentic ways. I'm not stepping down. You'll literally have to fire me. And so they literally, fired me after a 2-year process. But yeah, it was a crazy ride. So much stuff happened, and I feel for people who are still stuck in those systems. It's sad when teachers have to whisper to each other and they'll be like, I support you, but you know, I'm not going to say anything, you know, because I've seen what they do. They're vicious, and like, would you just say this? And I'm like, hey, I'm new here. Like, I'm the rookie. You want me to say it? Okay, fine, I'll say it. You know, like I have no fear of saying what's right or what I believe is right, you know, or even if I think I'm right, I want to engage someone, you know, and hear what they have to say. Like, that's how I grow as a scholar. Like, that is what a scholar is to me. So we have some people who are just mostly activists. They're not scholars. And a lot of plagiarists has come out as well. So these are people who aren't original thinkers, they're followers. And unfortunately, what they're following is, you know, a socialist communist ideology and they don't even realize the harm that they're doing to themselves, to their students. You take an oath to uphold and protect the Constitution when you're a teacher, at least in the state of California. These people are doing the opposite. There's like ed code on the books. You cannot teach or promote communism. They could care less. They're doing it, you know. So I mean, that's who we're working with. Very self-righteous, closed-minded, scary individuals who resort to just not just linguistic violence, but actual violence against people, you know, and taking over their property and doing the things that we've seen with these illegal encampments. That is part of the role and mission. It's been that way since these activists started in the late 60s with the Third World Front Liberation, who founded, you know, what has become ethnic studies in our schools. These used to be fringe departments, right? You would be like, oh, those are the ethnic studies, or like the gender studies or women's studies. Like they were fringe on campus. Now they're mainstream. They're in everything. And the same structures that they sought to set up when they were advancing their demands to establish these racist educational programs that focused on only 4 groups of supposedly racially minoritized people. That's what these, this came from Berkeley, UC Berkeley, and San Francisco State University, the Third World Liberation Front. Their demands to establish colleges of ethnic studies in the 1960s. Some of the most violent protests in student history nationally that took place, so violent that then Governor Reagan here in California had to call it the National Guard. I mean, these people, they're willing to, by any means necessary, do what it takes to advance these aims. And we saw it in the 60s. We're seeing it again in these illegal encampments. They're not done with that, by the way. There's a lot of organizing going on in the fall. Look to see what's coming to our campuses. We'll see it on the news again. I know things have gone kind of quote quiet, but they're definitely not quiet. They're organizing, and they're not done, you know, seeking the revolution that has been sought, you know, since the early 60s. So there's a lot of history around this. And I don't know, just like bookmark my timeline. I did some free summer workshops where I talked about these things. I was going to make it into a course, but now I'm just going to put the videos out because I just had a lot of people like saying, I need the video. I want to send it to someone. So I had these 4 workshops, and I'm looking to do that in the late fall, just putting them up like just a very minimalist, whatever, you know, kind of get the word out kind of thing. So hopefully this has been helpful information, and I hope Donald, that I actually answered your question. I think I went on way long here. Sorry about that.
No, it's fantastic. Great stuff. Yeah, yes, you did. I think there needs to be more people like you speaking out, you know, in different positions. Yeah, so it's great. Yeah, I've noticed also this anti-Semitism thing becoming very strange in recent times. There was just a space actually with Andrew Tate and Candace Owens, and I listened just to a few minutes of it. And anyway, yeah, that seems to be a big topic at the moment.
Yeah, it's a big topic, and I think that an important one as well, because, you know, when you think about it, really, anti-Zionism is the new anti-Semitism. I mean, Reverend Jonathan Sachs said that very long ago, and you know, some people like, you know, kind of bashad him and said like, oh, that's, you know, just not the way. But I think many people that were of that persuasion are starting to understand that a little bit better in today's world, which I'm thankful for. It's saddening, but that is the reality. It makes our campuses a hostility that's out there. You don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist, number one. So often people conflate the two. So there are many Zionists who are secular, who are, you know, of different faiths and so forth. And so it makes campus unsafe for anyone who identifies as Jewish, number one, who supports Israel, number two, or who identifies as a Zionist. You know, I've seen like just crazy videos of, you know, the blockades that happen on the UCLA campus and the legal battles that are happening around that. And just, you know, the climate that's been produced and the lack of leadership from these educational leaders, these high paid
presidents and, bloated senior administrators who are doing nothing to have neutrality on their campus, who are doing nothing to make sure that every student is able to be on campus and learn. And really, the whole goal and aim is to undermine the educational system, to destroy it. That is the purpose of these actions. They feel that these institutions have no authority. They shouldn't have had authority. And so they look to undermine that, because when you undermine the educational system and you destroy it and make it so that no one can go and learn, then you can begin to, have your dutiful comrades getting the education that you want them to have inside of your tents on while you occupy various properties that don't belong to you. That's the whole purpose of it. It's to disrupt all aspects of life. It's to dehumanize everyone. That's why there's an attack on, males and females and our understanding of that. That is directly related to it. It's an undermining of all things: family, your body, that you are a male or a female. You won't even be able to understand that once the ideological subversion is complete. You will understand nothing except for what the party teaches you. And that is not what I want to see for America. I'm just not cool with that. I'm not going along with it. I'm not into it. No.
What do you think contributes to this huge rise in anti-Semitism? You looked at, there's a lot of protests around Zionism. I just don't quite understand why. Is this a result of the Palestine situation, or is this always something that has kind of existed beforehand? Like, why is it so prevalent now? I still don't quite understand it.
Well, I would say that, this has been something that has been brewing for many years. It started with the United Nations, unfortunately, in the early 70s, coming out with their platform of Zionism is racism. That came from the United Nations. That was one of their policy positions, sadly. And, to discover that, Adrian, I was like, what? Because I was a teacher. I did Model UN with my class, I thought that was beautiful vision, so forth. But to see how they've contributed, and not only that, UNRWA, which is their relief agency, the only one established for a group of people, for a country that does not exist, that's been in existence, that's been keeping people in refugee status for years, decades, right? When I read the work of Einat Wilf, I had a better understanding of how that arm of the UN has worked and functioned. And then not just that, with the help of X, I'm on here a lot. I lurk and I look at things, just seeing how, bomb caches, training grounds, terrorist hoarding and provisions and munitions being stored in UNRWA schools, and being able to see what they're actually teaching the students at the schools to hate Jewish people, to hate Israel, and just teaching hatred in general. So I think that this has been something that's been brewing for a long time, and something that has been baked into the critical social justice ideology. We even saw things like Blacks for Palestine, which one of our congresspeople, Rashida Tlaib, has been instrumental in supporting and advancing. So this using of the racialization of people, that is an active process, and also telling students, if you're of this skin color, you should be in solidarity with this group or that group. The way you're in solidarity is you must do this or that. So there's a variety of actions that students are being pressured to take. Students are being taught how to protest. Students are not being taught how to read and write. They're learning books like So You Made It to a Protest, and other books that are being promoted by various programs that are just openly anti-Semitic. And the anti-Semitism has always been there. This is thousands of years old, right? Since the beginning of time. But I believe that this whole souring or saying you may not be a Zionist and be welcome in our solidarity movement. You cannot be identify as a Zionist fight for social justice. Like all of these kind of things are part of the critical social justice movement, which again is using race and gender identity ideologies, queer theory, queer Marxism, some people like to call it, to advance these toxic ideas among our students. So when you're taught something, when I'm a kindergarten student, and this is a real book that it was being read to students, is being read to students in like Washington and California and other areas of the nation. When I'm a kindergartner and the read aloud book is not about like, oh, my neighbor learning who I am and all of this stuff. Instead, it's telling me that, there's a group of Zionist bullies who are hurting Palestinian people, and that Palestine is a place that exists, and these bullies have taken it from them. And the way that we address this is we say free, free Palestine. Or another one said, we say from the river to the sea. So a kindergartner is being taught that. A kindergartner that doesn't know geography, they don't know world politics, they don't know anything, except for what they're not anything, but their knowledge is limited in terms of geopolitics. Let's just put it that way. And your teacher is telling you a narrative and a story. That's your story time in a K through 12 class. And then you go to first grade and the same thing happens. And then you're making posters and you're putting watermelons on them and doing all these other things. This is what's happening in our schools. And the old phrase, garbage in, garbage out, we're seeing it in real life. When you put garbage into the minds of young people, you get garbage. You get people marching on the streets. You get people tearing down the American flag and putting up the flag of foreign nations and terrorist organizations instead. You get them, defacing the monuments. You get all of the things that we see in our world today. And it doesn't happen by happenstance. This isn't happening by, the students read a book and they organized. These are teachers and faculty advisors leading students to these ideas and telling them that the way you make things right is you fight, and you make sure that, you resist this heteropatriarchy. What is that even? You do all of these things that are prescribed to you and that you're told you must do if you stand for justice in the world. Now, what young person is going to say, "Oh, I'm not. I don't believe with that. I don't believe in justice for the world." Like young people want to belong. They want to be part of something. They want to think they're making a change in the world. And so when you're told that's the way you do it, and that's what you're shown, and that's what's validated through social media and even just your classroom interactions with your faculty member and your teachers and staff members, that's what we get. Garbage in, garbage out, and it's time to take out the trash. It really is.
Yeah. I think this anti-Semitism, I think you're right, Rabia, that it's always been there with a lot of people, and just since all that's happening in Israel, I mean, I think it's terrible, of course, and I think it's on both sides. I mean, there's awful stuff happening and dreadful suffering. But I think what's happened, certainly with the left, and actually all types of people here in the West, I think that they're now it's become it's joined in with this sort of, oh, they're controlling the world stuff has really come back, all of these kinds of thoughts and these ideas are sort of wrapped up in with it. But yeah, I see someone like who I used to admire, Candace Owens.
The panel was really great tonight.
Yeah, you know what's crazy about that, Donald? Like, for me, like both of the extremes, they're like mirror images of each other. The far left and the far right are both threats to democracy from my perspective. You know, and both of the extremes are like tearing us asunder. And you know, in terms of anti-Semitism, you know, the anti-Semitism of the far right was what I had always grown up seeing and knowing and actually experiencing firsthand, you know, and observing, and seeing the effects of and the impacts of. But now the far left, you know, their comrades on that side of the spectrum, they're like a mirror image of each other. They look more and more like each other by the day. And then there's people like me. I've never claimed any political party. I don't say I'm left or right or whatever. I've been called a lot of stuff, but I don't ascribe any of those labels to myself. I've never embraced any of them. And I've always been just a free thinker. And when someone has a good idea or, you know, something of that nature, like I'm willing to entertain it and to think about it. So like, I don't like putting myself in boxes or anyone else. But right now we're in this situation where it's like, you have to claim this, or you must be that. If you're not going to say that you're far left or that you're far right, like, then we're going to just like push everybody who wants to just be in the center or in the middle, you know, to an extreme. You have to choose a camp. I'm never going to choose a camp. Whatever the orthodoxy is today, you know, I'm pushing up against it, and I'm going to have questions about it, and I'm going to ask questions, encourage other people to. When the new orthodoxy comes up, or the new boss, you know, pops in, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, as the old song goes, I'm going to have a problem with whatever the orthodoxy is at any given moment. Like, because, you know, there's many pathways to do a thing, and I'm never someone who thinks there's only one way and one solution. There's many pathways, many means. And that's just something I was born with, and so maybe I'm cursed for that. But I just can't. I'm not gonna do it. I have an inborn problem with any kind of like attempt to, you know, stamp down on innovation and creativity and human agency and human free will. Like, I have a big issue with that, and whatever side's doing it, I'm gonna speak against it and say no. And we have some questions. And if you're not willing to talk about it, then perhaps what you have isn't that great, because no one can question it. And so what's up with that? Like, I'm always going to be that one person raising a hand or encouraging someone to raise a hand. Because to me, that's what being American, being a human being is all about. Like, someone was making a joke on one of the other conversations, like, some people are just born different. Like, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, you know, I have some far left friends, and you know, I'm not Jewish. Well, I'm actually in Freemasonry, would you believe? But I was talking to a lot of them, and they kind of said to me, "But so, you know, are there Jewish people in your lodge?" You know, and you know, it's all tied up with that kind of ideology. And I'm like, oh, we have a mix of people, all types of people join. You know, whoever, we accept everyone, and it's just always bubbled up. You know, it's nothing to do with the war or what side you're on. It's like, we've got them. They're the evil people, all of them. You know, look at them. They're behind the scenes in governments, and all of these kinds of things has just popped up to the surface. And I'm seeing it all over the place, you know, being said to me and asked to me, all of that. I'm seeing it here.
You know, that's something that bugs me, Donald, like, about the whole standpoint epistemology, like, you know, perspective. Like, only a Black woman can speak on Black women issues because she has a lived experience or whatever, or only a Jewish person can speak on X or Y because they have a lived. That is just complete malarkey. It's ridiculous. Like, it's just not true to say that, you know, because I was born a certain way, I have this certain insight that no one else can have, you know, because of where I sit on the on the intersectionality matrix, because of my various identities and which ones are oppressed and, victims at various moments. Like, I can only speak to this. That is one of the most toxic things that have come out of this critical social justice ideology, the misapplication, I think, of intersectionality and standpoint epistemology. Like, only certain people can speak on things. Like, when I speak on certain topics, I've had that too, like what you just said about people say, like, are you Jewish? Like, why do you care so much? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what is wrong with your brain? Like, you don't have to be a certain identity to have a viewpoint on a topic or even to have expertise on it. So, I mean, it's just, that's one of the most saddening things that have come out of this. Even on the news media, you'll see people talking, like some of these pundits, and they're like, oh, as a whatever, I'm going to say this. And they're acting like they represent a whole group. You don't represent any group, bro. You are an individual. That's who you represent. That's it. Like, there's no one person or spokesperson for Black people or Jewish people or this people or that people. There's individuals with individual opinions. Standpoint epistemology is trash. Garbage in, garbage out. This is crazy because I'm actually very introverted, and so I think I've talked more than I ever planned to talk in a space. So that's pretty crazy and wild. But thank you for the opportunity just to kind of like kick some of these ideas around, because it does help, like, for each of us to hear different perspectives and like to be able to just think of like, okay, what do I think about that topic? Like, what are my thoughts on it? Or I think that's a good exercise for many of us to have, and just having access to a space like this where we can hear these different viewpoints is like really cool. So thank you.
I guess there was a lot of base takes coming out of you, which is really, really cool. But yeah, that's what this conversation is all about. That's why I host the space every day, is I kind of like hope that things like these occur, just people come up and talk about what's relevant, right? This is really relevant. I'm actually very happy that this like kind of came from you. So it's really awesome. I like this. And again, come around anytime if anything's like bothering you or something that you think needs to be discussed, needs to be heard by a broader public. Just like come up anytime, and we're all ears, literally.
Thank you.
I mean, it would be kind of weird. Oh, whoops! Hang on. Hang on. There's a lot of background audio. Yeah, it's like Tabby, whenever you like have your mic open and somebody else speaks, like the playback goes inwards because it's the microphone. What kind of phone are you using?
Was that to me?
Yes.
Oh yes. So I'm on an Android, Samsung.
Well, which model?
Oh geez, what is a Note 20 or something like that?
The older one, right?
Yeah, it's like a 9, Samsung 9.
Oh, that's. I was like, why am I hearing myself?
We have limited means. I'm working. I'm lucky. I'm off my Huawei.
Yeah, I remember that issue. I was like, wait a minute, why does this has to be like an Android situation, right? Because today you can literally have something playing at full volume and you don't hear any background audio at all anymore. Like with the phone right now, I can keep my mic open the entire time, and like if somebody were to speak, like you were to speak, Wiggle were to speak, or anyone were to speak, you actually don't hear any of the audio come back into the mic. So it's really they kind of fixed that problem. So when you were mentioning it was like a note, I'm like, that's to be an old note. Damn, he still got the old note. Those are the ones that that had that issue with the battery, didn't they? They like had this. They produced it, then it had issues with the battery. Then they ceased the production, and then the people who still had the old notes were like really. It was like a really rare thing to still have this thing because it's like the beautiful shape of the note. You can like balance this thing on a table somewhere. I still remember that.
That's wild. Like it's funny you say that. I chose this phone because it has a stylus. Like my favorite phone was my Trio. If I could still use a Trio, I would. So, But so now I'm stuck with this, and I never use the stylus. It's just that I have it there, and I could use it if I wanted to.
Dude, it's so funny because I actually have the S23. So it's like I actually have the one that is like a Note and has a stylus in it. So it's really practical. I kind of use it all the time because I have to do like image editing and stuff on my phone. Because like often there's like breaking news or something, or new features come out via X, and so I have to like edit something really quickly. And so I have a little stylus there. It's really good for like positioning icons and shit. So it's very nice. I actually use this like a lot. So yeah, this phone is really cool. It's a next generation, so it's like basically a next generation version of the Note. And even there's a newer one out now, which is a little bit faster. But honestly, there's not much difference between the two. It's like the iPhone situation where you like upgrade a year, but there's really not that much difference. But yeah, the next generation, if you're able to get it, it's really good. The 23 and the 24, highly recommend. 10 out of 10. Although I have to say, I used a Huawei as well. Still better. When I had the S21, when the S21 came out and I had a Mate 30 Pro or something, and that thing was still better, like miles better. Better camera, better compute, better everything. I didn't even want to switch, but I had to because, you know, they decided, okay, you know what, China's a competitor, so we're going to make sure that they don't access the latest version of Android. And so ever since then, I had to like actually be forced to use Samsung phones again, even though technically speaking, the Huawei hardware is way fucking superior.
Well, okay, so hold on. They always have access to the latest version of Android. They just weren't allowed to ship it with Google Play.
Oh, sorry, ship it with Google Play, my bad.
Yeah, because Android is an open source project, so there's not really anything Google can do to stop them from using it.
I'm sorry, I'm not gonna that one in my head.
But right now the hardware is much worse though, because they don't have access to TSMC. But back then they used to.
Oh right.
Back then they used to make their own chips with TSMC, and they made up around 10% of TSMC's revenue.
Huawei,
Yeah,
right?
Huawei, and then they had to give that up.
That explains why the compute was so good. Did Samsung back then? They didn't use TSMC, right?
Samsung. So the chips that use Qualcomm, those were using TSMC. The chips that were their own Exynos chips, they made them themselves. And whenever they had a situation where they had Qualcomm chips and they had Exynos chips, the Qualcomm chips would always perform significantly better.
Interesting.
So I remember.
What about the Snapdragon?
Qualcomm is Snapdragon.
Okay, so they're still using. Okay.
So Qualcomm uses for their best chips, they use TSMC, but for their lower end chips, they use Samsung.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that would explain why the Huawei was always that much better. Because I still remember it was like just insanely good.
Yeah.
Like sure, the rest of the hardware wasn't that impressive, but the compute was just great.
Well,
it's really good for video games.
It's not just about actually like making the chips themselves. It's also about the design, right? So they make the design, they design it, and then they send it off to the manufacturer to actually use the schematics to actually manufacture it through the design, right? So Huawei's designs were always pretty good, much better than Samsung. So Samsung had this problem of their designs not being as good, and also the manufacturing process not being as good. But Huawei was using TSMC, and their designs were also pretty good. You know, it's actually funny that so you know how they license from ARM the technology for the chips, right? So one of the years, Samsung actually had to give up on designing their own chips and just use the default ARM ones because their designs came out to be worse than the default ARM ones. So they just decided to use like ARM's like general design instead of their own design because they realized they weren't doing as good of a job.
I'm gonna post a little troll. Yeah, I didn't know that the gun emoji was gonna be that much of a controversy.
When is it fully like changing? Because I haven't seen it change on my iPhone.
I don't know.
I know Apple kind of restricts it, so it's like usually I'm guessing there's some sort of workaround, right?
I don't know.
I remember when it happened. I absolutely fucking hated it. I was like, why the fuck did Apple just change this to a water gun? And then all the other companies followed.
I should make a post just saying before 2016 it always had been a gun. Had been an actual gun.
Yes.
Let's actually have a meme. Here we go. Oh, by the way, the reporter. Did you see the post that I make? Basically saying imagine having a meltdown over an emoji.
I saw that.
That.
And then he blocked you, right?
Plus me. No. That's a better story still. So this guy decided, hey, I'm going to make something really stupid happen. I'm going to make a meme where I basically have left wing and right wing, right, on both sides of the picture, and one of them is like, they want to be inclusive, blah blah, whatever. I really forgot what it was, but the other one is like, oh, we're gonna like steamroll you. And his basic sentence, he said something. He said something along the lines of, one is like being reasonable, and the other one is incapable of forming coherent sentences and being grammatically accurate or something. I was like, wait a minute, you just described to me Kamala Harris. Let me go grab a Kamala Harris clip real quick. And I put that in his comment section without context, and he blocked me 1 minute later. Yeah, let me find it for you. You can actually, I think, unless it had been hidden, you can actually probably still see the reply. Yeah, let me see. He probably hit it. But you can still see it. Let me find it. It wasn't my intent. I did not think that was going to trigger him this bad, but I guess it probably did. Yeah, he hit it. There you go. That is the reply. Not sure if you can still see it, but yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Look, if you don't understand your own words or the context thereof, don't post it on fucking X.com, because there are people much more autistic than me just waiting for someone to do some bullshit like that.
Oh my fucking god. Imagine being this much of an asshat. He has an unreadable nonsense machine quoted from Elon Musk and retarded from Elon Musk in his bio.
I didn't even know that this guy existed. I was like, who's this fucking idiot? Why is he so angry about a gun emoji?
I still have no idea who he is.
I also don't know. I guess he's some sort of weird legacy media journalist or some shit, and he's fucking idiot. I don't know. I don't know, bro.
No, journalism died the day that it just became like a university degree. It used to be that you risked your life to fucking cover some mafia story or something that happened during the war, going up against the entire U.S. government or some shit like that, right? Now it's just shitty ass articles about 10 types of fish you are. Or some other BuzzFeed bullshit. Pay 300 fucking grand for
BuzzFeed.
300 grand for a fucking degree to go work at BuzzFeed, and then the company goes bankrupt.
Oh, dude, I hate BuzzFeed so much. BuzzFeed single-handedly, I think, basically killed the idea of web journalism.
I remember back when Vice was good. Remember that? Remember back when Vice was good?
But what was good?
Vice News.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There used
yeah.
to be a
That's great.
time where Vice was like a serious publication with amazing
Mm.
amazing documentaries and all these things. And I used to watch Vice all the time. And then one day they just decided, what if we became completely retarded?
Wow. What the fuck is wrong with journalists these days, man? It's crazy. It's almost like as if they completely and collectively lost their shit right about like 2016 or something like that. Like, when did it get so bad?
It started when they started subscribing to dildo subscriptions.
Sorry, what? What? Where did you get this intel from, I ask?
I just made it up.
Why so specific?
I assume all of them have some sort of thing going on.
Okay.
They're all in like secret
Why?
cuck dungeons, and like there's something going on in the background. I don't know what it is, but there's something going on in the background.
Nah. I mean, I would ask where you got this shit from, but you explained it to me once, so I'm not going to ask any more questions in that regard, but damn. Cock dungeon. What the fuck? You even know the site. Is there any other specific references that we may not understand that you can give us right now? What other sites there are, perhaps?
Listen, I'm just gonna say this: like 80% of people you meet, right, especially the fucking journalists and the psychologists and these types of people, most of them have some fucking weird shit going on in the background. Right? They just have to put up like a civilized front.
I want everyone to prompt Grok with gun emoji or question thereof and post that as a reply to this thing. Oh, this your creativity. Also, what do you think? Is the meme good?
Which way?
Yeah, it's great.
No, well, it's just been.
Oh.
I actually made it myself with what we were talking about with Tabia before, the stylus, because I found the actual. Okay, ironically enough, I didn't have like a cutout from the actual emoji just lying around because it had changed. And so what I did is basically, because this guy started going full meltdown because the emoji was changed, he actually posted a screenshot of the before and after. So I basically just took that, I took his shit, I cut it out from there and used that in this meme. But it's kind of funny. It is completely irrelevant. It's not important to the context of the meme at all. I just kind of felt it was funny. You know, I still can't believe that this guy blocked me just because of that Kamala Harris video. That is hilarious.
I'm gonna ask him. Hold on, I should pull I'm thinking of what to reply to. Oh, I have the perfect message. Does your wife's boyfriend not approve?
probably ask Alex Stein.
Yeah.
You know, Alex Stein's wife's boyfriend.
Oh,
You know what I mean with that? Do you know what that is?
I don't know who Alex Stein is. I'm talking about Seth Abramson.
Yeah, I know. No. You don't understand. So Alex Stein, he does this thing where basically what he does is something. Okay, so when the immigrants first got placed into the hotels, he actually started walking around with this dude. He said, okay, this guy here, he's looking for a hotel room. He can't sleep anywhere, so we need a hotel room. You're giving it to all these immigrants for free. Why can't you give this guy a hotel room, right? And it's a big, really fat black dude that he calls his wife's boyfriend.
Oh my god!
Then he runs around with this guy everywhere. In a tank top.
Oh my god!
So it's this really next level sized dude. This next level sized black dude. And he walks around with him in a fucking tank top saying, look, this is my wife's boyfriend. We need a hotel room. He can't sleep anywhere. That's Alex Stein. Yeah. And he takes him around like various different places. And that's always his like meme with him. That's his wife's boyfriend. He does so much stupid shit. I think I have an interview with him tomorrow, actually. So now that I was thinking about it, so hopefully that goes through because there was difficulties beforehand.
I'm looking for the gun emoji.
It's mine. Just type it. Doesn't your phone come like with the ability to search?
It does, but X's search success.
Well, why are you using X's search?
What search?
I don't understand. It's like you're on your phone. Are you on your computer or are you on your phone? Well, just search in your local emojis, man. Isn't that how that works? Just type in gun. You literally see the emoji.
Yeah,
actually, no. Literally. Okay, here, make it easier.
I typed in gun. It's not here.
Okay, here's what you do. You go to the post that I pinned up at the top and just copy paste my shit. That should fix it for you.
Oh my god, where the fuck is this post?
It's pinned at the top. Scroll a little bit to the... Yeah.
That's not his post though, that's your post.
No, I know that's my post, but you're looking for the gun meme, right?
No, I'm looking for his account.
Oh, you're looking for his account?
No, I'm looking for his post complaining about the gun. With the, what the hell is wrong with you?
I think he fucking deleted it, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
I didn't find it either. I just saw the screenshot. I was like, thank you, yoink. Ironically enough, you're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. This was Krasenstein's screenshot.
Oh,
they were complaining about this too. And so I thought, you know what? Just for the hell of it, I'm just gonna yoink your screenshot. It's mine now.
Oh my god.
That's why I was in light mode, because I never fucking use light mode because it singes my eyeballs. So that's why I was in light mode. Of course, it Krasenstein's be using light mode. So there
Was
you
it
go.
Brian or Ed? Was it Brian or Ed?
I'm not sure. It's probably Ed. I'm not sure which one of them is the edgiest. I sometimes can't tell the difference.
Are they both gay?
The amount of times that people have asked this exact question is honestly mind-boggling. If I'd taken a shot for every single time I've heard this exact question of people who didn't know them, I would be dead right now. Okay, that's the problem. It would be that much alcohol. You'd take me out on a stretcher, get my stomach pumped. 100%.
Well, I mean, I know one of them is gay. I don't know which one specifically. I assume the other one is too.
There have been some very interesting accusations, to say the least.
What do you mean? One of them has literally said he's gay.
No, I said there's been some very interesting accusations in terms of activities with themselves
Oh.
in regards to that,
Okay.
that context.
Okay, I see.
Mhm.
I see.
I'm gonna kind of like cut it off there because I kind of like them in a sense as well. I like to troll a little bit, but I'm not an asshole. When I'm an asshole, I'll show you. You know what that looks like. This is not it. You may think that this is like remarkably offensive. You should see what I do to people that I actually don't like. Whoa.
Yeah, but either way, it looks like Steph's wife didn't approve. Steph's wife's boyfriend doesn't approve of the gun emoji, so Steph sure doesn't approve either.
Mm.
What is
What does this mean though?
What?
Yeah, but what does this mean though? Is this like, does this mean that like the boyfriend is such a huge cuck as well that he can't stand around being not a water pistol emoji? Is that what the insinuation is?
No, it's more. I'm guessing it's like more of like a humiliation kink type thing. He's like trying to make the cuck, do humiliating activities like be retarded on the internet.
Jesus fucking Christ. What the fuck is wrong with people on the humiliation thing? What the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, seriously, you're fucking sick, man. Like, can't you be interested in, like, a very specific I mean, look, I understand if you're, like, gay or something like that. I get this. I fully understand. I don't have anything against you. You can do whatever you want to yourself and with whatever, or to whomever and with whomever you want, as long as it's within a certain age bracket, that there's consent, everything's good. Like, oh, that's perfectly fine. You can do whatever the fuck you want to each other. But, do we really have to have this specifically? Like, this just looks like a mental problem. I mean, seriously. Humiliation kinks. What the actual fuck even is that?
There's a lot of mental problems in this world, Adrian.
Remember the thing that you told me about that one,
What?
yeah, I can't say it because otherwise everyone will know. Remember that one girl that you told me about that had the degradation thing with the,
Which one? Which one? There's a lot of those.
Oh my god. No,
Just message
Yeah.
it to me. Just message it to me.
that one.
Oh.
I was dying, dude. When you mentioned that one, I was dying of laughter.
Yeah.
You'd think, you'd think there's no way. There's no way, but I guess,
That is more common than you would think.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, for real.
Why?
I don't know.
It's just why.
I don't know.
There has to be some sort of rationale behind this. Yeah, I just don't know what it is.
Well, I never got that type of kink anyway. I don't know why people are into that shit.
Yeah.
Like some things I'll understand like the other way around, right? But like the being on the receiving end, I don't understand that shit whatsoever.
Oh my god, the gun generations, oh my god.
The gun. Is it now changed to a
Like,
gun
this
on
post is
Android?
blowing up.
Is it changed to a gun on Android?
No, it's still fucking ray gun or some shit.
Oh my god. When is it going to be changed to mobile?
I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't fucking build the software.
Here go my dreams of you being Elon.
Even if he doesn't build that himself, I mean, he sure has the capacity to do so if he wanted to.
Hold on. Are you
But he
telling
doesn't
me?
do that himself.
Are you telling me that the CEO is not involved in every aspect of the company?
Bro, I am telling you, he's not the CEO. He's the CTO. He's the chief troll officer. Get it right, man. Remember, for a certain period of time, X's CEO was a fucking dog. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Linda.
The Doge.
Linda's-
We had an
Linda's
actual Doge
CEO,
as the
yeah.
CEO of a tech company.
Yeah, Linda's the CEO. Yeah.
Linda's the CEO now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you telling me the owner is not involved in the day-to-day activity of everything?
Are you telling me
Really?
he's not a deranged
Elon was a
sociopath who micromanages
micromanager.
everything?
I thought Elon was a micromanager. How dare you tell me that he's been lying all this time?
He's a macro manager, right? Macro impact. It's the reason why this app is nice and where we don't have Microsoft, because it's a macro hard, not a Microsoft. Speaking of software and
I wonder if someone's
I'm so sorry, this is a terrible introduction.
I wonder if someone started a tech company, could they legally call it macro hard? Or like does Microsoft have some
Macro.
does Microsoft
Like, what if it's the most secure system on the planet and like comes with some really interesting stuff? And it's like based off of Linux just to fuck with everyone? Like, that would be so good. Like, you create a meme OS, but we're going to call it macro hard.
macro?
Actually, instead of calling it Adrian OS, we just called macro hard. Now that I think about it, we were like thinking about creating like something like a custom OS that is a meme OS. Why don't we just create macro hard?
We could.
Who wants macro hard?
Macro.
Yeah,
What's,
actually, I
what's
think we
the
should.
opposite of a window?
A door.
I wouldn't say that's an opposite.
I mean, if it's it's kind of closed. You want it to stay closed. Well, and you can't see through it most of the time. Okay. You know, maybe what's the opposite of a window? It's obviously a wall, I guess, right? So that's about as opposite, I guess,
Macro
as it
hard.
gets. It's a wall.
Macro hard wall.
Macro hard wall.
That's our new operating system.
Wall hard macro. I mean, I love the fact we turned everything up like the other way around, just the original. Sounds actually kind of good.
Yeah.
You know, macro hard wall.
That
Yeah.
actually does work. That actually does work, though.
Actually works.
Yeah.
We should actually make something like that. I think we should legitimately make this thing, and it should be like really good at very specific things that Windows is remarkably shit at. Like,
We're just gonna.
and it needs to be easy.
We're just
Like,
gonna-
everybody has to be able to use it.
We're just gonna take vanilla OS, and then we're gonna fucking change the logo, and then we're gonna call it a day.
Oh man. But yeah, if we put a little customization into that, make it look a bit like as if it was Windows. Like, we took the good things about how Windows works, put it in that, and took out all the shit things of how it doesn't work. And there you go. We got ourselves the
I
macro
mean,
hard.
to do that, you'd probably have to fucking get Wine to stop being a piece of shit, and that's gonna be very hard to do.
Truth.
That's gonna be hard to do.
Speaking of software-related things, welcome, Elliot. What's up, bro? What brings you by?
Yo, I love your guys' space. I just thought I'd pop by and say hi and maybe get involved in the conversation a bit.
Sure. Get involved in the conversation. I love how the Spaces title is so meta that literally it just is mentionable in casual conversation, but it's the actual title of the space.
Yeah. I like to kind of get in, when my place is there. Like, I don't just want to jump in and say, hi, everybody, how's it going? What are you talking about? I don't want to invade like that, but just like when the time comes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. Now, you do software-related things, is that correct? I mean, I look at your profile, and I saw one of your videos of you compiling some stuff. I was like, damn, dude, that's fucking cool. So I decided to give you a follow.
Yeah, I saw that. Thanks for the follow, by the way. I've been doing those time lapses for probably a month and a half now, and everyone likes them. So,
Yeah, I mean, it looks sweet. I like to see the entire process, and I just love how you were doing your thing. You went away, you came back, did your thing. It was like very natural. I like the thing that it's very raw in a sense as well.
Yeah.
But you don't really see anymore. Everything's just hyper edited and everything like that. But this kind of like gives you an idea of what's happening, how extensively you spend your time on building things, right? So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's even it's not even like a content thing either. A lot of it is an internal thing. So when you're working for like 20 hours straight and you're recorded, like there's a different kind of pressure when you're just doing that like in your own head and there's nothing watching you. You actually have to be like have more integrity than if you're being recorded, because like no one's watching you and you have to do the right thing. So it's different when you're being recorded versus not. So I don't know, even for those who like struggle with focus, I encourage, like, even try that out and don't even post it. Just look at it after.
Great take.
It's something worth experiencing for sure. But Adrian, what have you done with software?
Personally, not that much. I'm usually the guy who looks at things from a graphical perspective and just makes the user interface look nice.
Mhm.
That's usually it. So like everyone can do a lot of building, and that was always like my position. When people would ask me, okay, hey, we want to build a product, can you like make it look a certain way that the user actually enjoys it? So I'd imagine like how exactly would a day-to-day user kind of like interact with a particular tool, and then we'll just optimize it until it's like perfect, you know?
Yep.
The buttons are the right position, they're the right size, the color scheme is good. And so, yeah, that's about as much as I know of it.
Dude, that part is so damn important. Like, I know technical people like to criticize, like front end engineers and designers, but like, dude, if you have an amazing product that is like going to revolutionize everything, nobody will use it if you don't make it look nice. Like this is why Perplexity started doing this, because they have a minimalistic interface. They could probably even make it more minimalistic, but like, yeah, dude, when the general public can interact with your thing like it's a Google search engine and all they have to know is one or two things, like, dude, it's bound to take off, So I appreciate that, dude. You got to make it accessible to everyone.
It's really all I focus on is backend because I can't design for shit.
Yeah, that's just one piece of the puzzle. We need everybody here.
I think the best thing is that you like understand the communication as well, because if you have like a design, I feel like you have as a design team to engineering interaction, and these people don't talk to each other like live in a call as the development is happening. There's just a fundamental misalignment, and that causes a lot of issues. Like I have personally sat down with someone and within 24 hours built a tool that has never existed before. And we're just like basically going back and forth, kind of like brainstorming it just to kind of build something. And that I found was really, really fucking cool. So with designing, it's always about the communication. So if your engineer is based and you're based, then you guys are going to make a lot of good stuff and fast.
It's like hackathons, right? You go to like a weekend, when you go to a weekend-long hackathon, it's like a team of 4 or 5 people, and you're all building this entire app like from scratch. Dude, that's the most fun thing ever. It's extremely stressful, like the first little bit, and when things don't work. But it's dude, like those moments when you're stressed out and you have trouble communicating, like that is actually what builds you up. It's so important. Speaking of software that you build really fast, I spent the last, I don't know if you saw my last upload. It's like 20 hours long. And yeah, I did like a 20-hour straight code in time lapse. And I put up a Minecraft mod and server support for creating custom labels for Minecraft agents.
That's whack.
So you just like set up the environment and then drag and drop like 7 or 8 files in. And then you can just get started right away and record data from like anywhere in the world and have it sync up with your Linux server, and then like add whatever custom mods you want with Forge, and just like pretty much just the limit is your imagination. Whatever you can add in mods is the limit. Like,
Elliot, have you ever played Crazy Craft?
No, I haven't done a lot of those mods. I did some of the Tech-It and the Technic stuff like back like 10 years ago, but nothing too crazy since then.
I was about to explain to you the concepts of black and white dragons and rainbow ads. Like legit. Because that was our last conversation that we had about Crazy Craft. It was about rainbow ads and dragons.
What is Crazy Craft?
So Crazy Craft is this mod pack that used to be very, very popular in the past. They haven't really updated it properly, so it's not really around anymore. They came out with like 2 and 3 and 4, but they were like the original Crazy Craft. Yeah, it was basically fucking crazy. you had like 100 extra biomes, and you had like a shit ton of extra, mobs and dimensions, and you had like a mob called a girlfriend that you could tame. So you could literally tame a girlfriend, and then you would take her to the crystal dimension, and then you would make shit out of crystals for her to wear.
This is crazy. I'm just looking at this on Google right now. Dude. This looks. Dude, wouldn't your FPS drop like so much from this?
It actually ran pretty well. I don't know how the fuck they did it. You know, this is what I don't understand about Minecraft's devs, right? How are people with free time able to make shit like this? And then Minecraft, fucking Mojang, the company, can't even do 1% of what some dudes did. I don't understand this.
This is the state of tech right now. Yep. This is why I hope to work for myself as long as possible. I mean, maybe Anthropic will like pick me up after I launch this course, but I don't know. Like it just seems like, dude, building on your own. The guy who built Open Web UI did that on his own for like the first version or two, right? Like that's an insane piece of software that he just like one person did, and everybody uses it, right? So
you know the encryption that's used in Go the language, it was just built by one guy. The fucking tool for it.
Yeah, it's either like one crack engineer who builds it, or
it's like this Chinese dude in the US.
This Chinese guy who lives in his mom's basement in San Francisco.
I checked out his website. To like donate to it, and it's like, I'm finished with building it. This is done. Don't donate me any more money. Donations are closed.
I do not want to be motivated to continue this. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, you know what we should do? We should get like this probably won't happen. But we should it would be cool if we got like a bunch of people from this space, or even others too, and we got like a big server, and we just we just streamed it, and we did like mini games where we have like
we need to play Crazy Craft. This is what we need to do.
I don't have time for like that level of content. Actually, the only thing I want to do is build a bunch of shit in survival, and that's it. I'm a happy person. When that happens.
Yeah, that's all you need. Survival is all you need, right?
Actually, I haven't played the game in years, so I don't know what they've added.
Oh my god, they've added so much bullshit.
I have not played since 1.8.
Oh damn.
I'm telling you, man. There's so much bullshit. They've like had a whole expansion for the oceans. What's inside of the oceans? They have copper now. They have netherite. They have all kinds of bullshit.
And yet it doesn't compare to Crazy Craft.
Oh, and you can't spam click either. You can't like.
Oh my god.
You can't do that in PvP. You have to wait.
Oh my god.
So, dude, I used to be a 1.8.9.
This is like for. Is this like for Java edition?
Yeah.
Bedrock edition, or both?
Yeah,
both.
Java.
Oh, well. Are you talking about with not being able to spam?
Yeah, I mean, I've only played Java edition, so.
No, you can't do it in Bedrock either. I remember because I bought Bedrock for some reason one day, and then I noticed I couldn't fucking spam the shit either.
If you played Minecraft since like the alpha and beta versions, it's impossible to go to Bedrock, because Minecraft is like that hyper nostalgic video game that you play for 2 weeks at some random time out of the year that you just obsess over, and then you don't play it again.
Yeah.
I think I have like a meme dedicated to this. I gotta find it.
Well, there's lots of memes about it because everyone knows it.
Yeah,
I kind of had a similar thing where
it's like
I would just automate everything, and I wouldn't even have to beat any of the in-game content. I would just like fucking auto-click farm using fishing rods, and that was how I got everything I needed. I got better upgrades from doing the mining this way than I did from actually enchanting my stuff via like the table. The table became obsolete. I just had it there because it was fun to look at.
Yeah.
I built a bunch of books around it because I was like, okay, cool, it actually looks nice, and sure, but the level of enchantment is definitely not gonna. That definitely has not effect. But yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The meme I'm talking about was like me and the boys looking for like a new place to set up our base during our like 2-week Minecraft obsession.
Yeah. I know those memes. Dun, 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 dun,
Yes, yes.
dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
But I play that beautiful. Actually, since the last update, they had this beautiful music added to it when the RTX thing came out. Oh, dude.
Oh, I know.
That was great. They really expanded the
I
song.
know the one you're talking about. Hold on,
I think I actually have a whole playlist for that shit. It's great.
Is it Aria Math or something else?
Yes.
I think that's Zarya. Yep.
Yeah.
So I actually have like 10 variants of that song in my Spotify playlist that are all like synthwave and stuff.
Oh, wow.
It's the most hyper nostalgic thing ever, dude.
Oh yeah, dude, instantly hear it. Oh, my personal favorite, floating trees. Oh, so relaxing.
Floating trees, let me search this up.
We did a floating trees. It's so good.
That one's good, yeah.
I think it was C1A3 that did it. Fucking brilliant. It's so nice.
Floating trees. Ooh. Oh yes.
Yeah. Do you like that one? I have others too. There's like one that was by Max Cooper. Like you go to YouTube, search Max Cooper Myth. So it's Max Cooper 2 O's and Myth. It should be like a video with a reddish, darkish thumbnail. Click that shit.
Found it.
It's so good. It's so fucking relaxing. It like instantly takes out all the stress from your soul. It's just so good.
Oh yeah. Or you I mean this is like a common type of music. There are a lot of songs like this, especially.
Yeah.
If you go onto YouTube and you search up like 4 a.m. or 2 a.m. and it's like a picture of like on top of a city where it's like super foggy or something, or like in the trees and it's those foggy thumbnails. It's the same thing. It's very very similar.
Yeah.
But those are like a little eerie. I don't know. I can't listen to those for a long
Yeah.
time.
I like it when it's comforting. Like I like comforting stuff. I don't like eerie stuff necessarily, because if I'm already like burnt out and fucked up for the rest of the day, I don't want to like feel eeriness. I want to feel comfort because I'm liking that shit right now.
Your eyes are dry and you're like 6 coffees down. You're like, dude, I really don't want to feel like I'm in an asylum right now.
You literally look like the fucking son of Wakely meme with you like crying a little bit, and then the fucking sun comes in. It's beautiful, bright colors, and that's what the music feels like that you're listening to. Whilst the other thing is just like you feel like you're wearing a hoodie and you're the Bojack that smokes. Like that. That's the difference between the two. Which way, Western?
By the way, Adrian, did you see the React OS thing I sent you?
I saw it, but didn't clear it. Man, check it out.
So React OS is basically these people that sat down and they were like, what if we made Windows itself from scratch? So they're literally trying to reverse engineer Windows to fucking make it so where you can run every single Windows application without having to run Windows.
Does it work?
Huh?
Mm.
It works with like
Does it work?
works with like Windows XP software, when the software that was designed for like Windows XP.
Who supported Russia?
What?
Oh wow.
But you have to like commend them because like these individual people that just decided, you know what, let's just try to fucking make Windows from scratch.
In 1996. Wow. Dude, that's wild. Compute back then was so different. If you fucked up in some way, you're like permafucked. Today, it doesn't really matter.
Well, now we have parallel processors, right? So the whole computing paradigm has changed a bunch since then. I mean, Jensen started NVIDIA in 1993. So, I mean, like back then there was nothing, and they were a graphics company too. So it was like the architecture, the nanometer scale was like very large. I actually saw a very interesting article. The average NVIDIA employee brings about $110 million. Brings about $110 million of value to the company. If you divide the market cap of NVIDIA by the number of employees, each employee brings about $100 million of value to NVIDIA. Isn't that crazy?
Well, that's mostly because they don't hire that many people, right? So compared to the
they don't hire that many people, and with the whole transformer thing, like.
The problem is with NVIDIA is they're not a company that really lets people go though, right? So a lot of it's a company that's difficult to get into, but once you've gotten into, it's like difficult to get fired. It's like the government, but it's also difficult to get in. It leads to a situation where like the newer employees are doing like most of the work and the older employees are just sitting down relaxing.
Really? Yeah. Is that okay? Can someone explain this to me? I've never worked in a corporate environment or like an office job before. Like, how does that work? You have the seniors, which are just napping and sitting around and able to just complete tasks because it's easy for them, and then you have the juniors, which are just doing all the work, even though it's way harder for them compared to the seniors. That doesn't make any logical sense.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Is that true?
Actually, no, I wouldn't say so.
Depends on the company.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are like superstar, but developers that are like senior developers that are just they've been there for a while and they're like often quiet and humble, but there's so much weight that it's difficult to say anything.
There's also a lot of red tape, right? So someone that could be doing more, they have to like do all this bullshit, talk to like 15 managers to get anything fucking done, right?
Oh yeah, you can't just like pick something and go do it. You have to get approval because it's not.
That's why startups can compete with like massive companies because they don't have all that bullshit going on.
That's right. Yep. And that's also.
It's almost like as if every single time there's a corporate structure, it's like designed to sabotage itself.
Yeah.
You ever like read the psyopsing manual from the CIA? What do you do in order to sabotage an organization from the inside out? Exactly what we've just described. Set up unnecessary meetings, set up unnecessary processes of approval that one needs to go through to get shit done. Make everything as slow as fucking possible. Make everyone talk to each other. All this kind of stuff.
Or you could just have like a different space for each company that you're running. Like let's say you're Elon Musk and you have Neuralink getting started up, and then you have Tesla, and then you have SpaceX, and you have each individual space for it, where all the engineers are in a call for 8 hours, and they're able to collaborate and just like hang out and chill and write code.
Yeah,
that's a good thing about splitting up into multiple companies, right? If you have one company, they're all going to be fighting for resources for their department, right? But if you have them as separate companies, you're not going to get that anymore.
Right, different markets, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Each time I think more about Elon's plan, the more I realize he's absolutely brilliant, because it seems like all of this has been like thought out preemptively from all like the books he's read as a kid. I mean, I have friends like that too. Where all they do is read books. Like you walk into their room and you just see like 3,000 books stacked on top of each other. Like, how do you do this? It seems like maybe he planned that out. And he's just like, okay, instead of starting one big thing, I might have like a bunch of smaller ones and then like maybe one big thing if it does extremely well. And it seems like that works. Yeah, Adrian, by the way, I mean, you've probably answered this question a million times before, but I was tuned in like a little while back when you were in a space with Elon. I'm curious, like, how did you guys meet up?
Accident, really? It's an accident. Well, I mean, I've been around for quite a while before that. I've had spaces, and obviously it was a bit of a mind-blowing thing for a lot of people. And so I got lucky. The first interaction I got lucky. They let me up because they kind of underestimated the impact that I would have. So they just thought it would be a one-off joke, and that would be the end, right? They always thought it was just a gimmick. So they let me up. It was a fun laugh, but then turned into something else. And then for the second time, I kind of interacted with him, but it wasn't really that he saw that interaction because in that space, that was the day they were demonstrating the V12 version of FSD. And I didn't want to disturb, so I basically sat on the space while Elon was in it describing stuff, and I said nothing. I was there. I was like, hey, man, and that's it. I didn't say anything beyond that. I just sat there and I did nothing, right? Because I didn't want to disturb. I was about to ask him a few questions, but then I decided to just not do anything at all, because otherwise it would totally disrupt everything, and this is not the day to do this. But then the third time was when a person, Mysterious Cat, they had a space. They had a mystery space, effectively, with Elon, and there was supposed to be an interview going on. That's what they did. And so I requested and waited until the space would open up. That happened. He came in. We were there chatting with each other. And that was it. Like, we were having a conversation back and forth. That was the last mimetic meetup. That was the third interaction. And after that, the space ended. I hosted my own space. Everything was fun. And then he came to my space, and that was the fourth interaction. He came to my space and chilled there for a little bit, and we had a good conversation, and after that, he followed me. That was cool.
That's insane.
Actually, Blythe and Wiggle were both there, except Wiggle was there in spirit because he was asleep.
Yeah. Unlucky.
Yeah, it was the biggest mistake of my life.
He was on the panel, but he was asleep.
Oh my god.
We told him afterwards, was like, dude.
It was an all-nighter, and I just like basically faded out on the couch.
Wiggle,
yeah.
make sure he never goes to sleep ever again on space.
I use matches now to hold my eyelids.
That's a good scare. It's like, if you go to sleep, Elon Musk will join your space.
Imagine if imagine it happens again. Wiggle falls asleep, Elon joins. He's like, hey guys, and then we're gonna know what the secret is. Wiggle
I'm
falls.
scared now.
Wiggle falls.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, like, everyone was there. It was really fun. And yeah, turned out to be an excellent little conversation.
Yeah, Elon discovered the soundboard.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did the thing that I would do with it, which I found was very funny.
Making
It's like spammed everything. So,
spam.
spammed every sound. It was great. It was really great. So yeah, that's how that meetup happened. All 4 times. Technically 3, but technically 4.
Imagine he joins tonight. Nah. It's just crazy, dude. I just feel awesome that I get to talk to someone who talked to Elon. Like, that alone is just crazy.
Yeah.
I imagine a lot of other people in the space also feel that way.
Oh yeah.
I'd imagine it.
Imagine being born after like Elon's era.
Oh boy.
I mean, to be fair, that's probably what they felt in like the past with a lot of people, like Steve Jobs, fucking Genghis Khan, Aristotle, whatever, right? They all probably felt like they were born after an era. There's always going to be someone new. it comes in.
Dude, I was thinking about this recently. It's like everyone is trying to think about like them versus Elon and trying to operate at his levels, but it's like the people you should be scared of, or rather competing with, are like, okay, yourself, which is like obvious. Everyone's saying, only one to compete with is yourself, but also like the other kids that are insanely cracked at what they do, and they're just building stuff, right? Like the ones who haven't yet become billionaires but are working at it and learning stuff nonstop. Like those are the people you should be scared of right now, not Elon.
There are people out there that like are insanely cracked that you've never heard of.
I mean, the ones who are insanely cracked are probably not even on this app because they're just building so much. I know a few of these guys. Like one of my friends since like I think early elementary school. I've known him for like 14 years, and yeah, he's like the most cracked engineer I've ever known. Like, out of anybody I've ever met, he is by far the most skilled person. He's the type of guy who like he can write in any language really fast, like just top to bottom. He understands it in and out, and he uses NeoVim.
Oh, okay.
Wild.
Doesn't use Emacs? What the fuck?
Who uses Emacs? Do you use Emacs?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm learning it, but no, I don't.
Why do people learn Emacs? What is the?
It's okay. So the default Emacs itself is not that good, but I like if you're using like a customized version like Doom, it's very good. Doom Emacs.
Interesting. Yeah, I've seen some people who use it, but it looks like the same as NeoVim, except with different colors.
It's more difficult than NeoVim.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna stick with VS Code. Fuck that.
I'm really excited about I'm really excited with what's happening with Z. You know about Z?
Yes, I have that installed actually.
I do too. I like the fact that it's built in Rust.
Yeah. Rust is.
I know a lot of developers don't like Rust, but I think that's just because they're retarded. And they don't like the fact that the compiler doesn't let them blow their leg off whenever they're programming.
Yeah, some people like that feature. It sucks though. Like, dude, having to deal with like seg faults and stuff, and then go into GDB and then just figure everything out manually. It's like, sure, you can see where the electrons are, and you get to understand like what the computer's doing, but at the same time, like, dude, come on, just mature up a little bit, give it up.
Listen, like 80% of all like hacks happen through like memory issues, right?
Yes.
Something to do with memory, right? Rust doesn't let you do any of those fucking things, right?
Exactly. Well, here's the thing. If you look, okay, Rust is built in C, right?
No, I don't think so.
No, it's not. Okay. So I mean,
it's.
Oh, no.
I think Rust was built with what's the tool? It's like a tool to make like languages.
LLVM?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, LLVM. Yeah. LLVM is written in C++.
Yeah, but just because it's written in it doesn't mean it's using that.
Yeah, well, I mean, LLVM is like used for all compilers. So
yeah.
You know, Chris Latner, the guy who built LLVM, he sent me an email after I built a course on Mojo. You guys, have you heard about Mojo, by the way? Mojo is a really cool one.
Mojo programming language?
Yeah, like the AI accelerator language, Mojo. Yeah.
I've never heard of Mojo, no.
Okay, search up Mojo programming language on Google. You'll see it. If you go to the YouTube one, you'll see a course from Free Code Camp. I built that.
What languages did you do for Free Code Camp?
I did a intro to Mojo course.
Oh my god, it's proprietary. Mojo full code. Okay, so free code camp. Yeah, I see. I like free code camp. I like what they do.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. They have really good courses.
The Mojo programming language combines the usability of Python.
I don't think you're this old guy, right?
No, that's me. That's me. Can't you tell?
With the performance of C. It's basically
Oh, that's you. Okay, so that's you.
an enhanced version of Python specifically designed for artificial intelligence developers. In this course, Elliot Arledge will teach you how to use
Oh, that's you.
Elliot has created many popular courses related to AI, and he's the perfect person to teach this course. Let's start learning.
Welcome to Intro to the Mojo Programming Language. In this course, you're learning the fundamentals, intermediate, and advanced features of this problem.
So, with Mojo,
Yep.
influenced by Python, C is Python, C, C++, Rust, Swift, Zig. Okay.
Yeah.
Why
it's
is
pretty
this?
good.
Why is it proprietary?
What do you mean proprietary?
What do you mean?
What is
Like
this?
apparently the license of it is proprietary.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't go into that stuff. It's more. I mean, dude, like I built that like a week after the language released. Like it was like V0.1.
Right.
It's very, yeah. They had like SIMD types as like the most advanced thing.
I think people have kind of learned not to use any proprietary programming language after what Oracle did to Java.
Yeah, dude. I had a little thing with Java the past few days here, just writing like mods and stuff. Dude, Java is awesome because you can like port it to any device, and I can just like export my jar file into the mods folder on like any OS. But
yeah,
just like the whole Java ecosystem, like Jesus Christ, man, it's so hard to navigate.
No, but it's more like if you write software, there was a time where like if you wrote software in Java, Oracle was literally coming after you, demanding massive payments.
Oh,
right.
Oh, that's what you mean. Yeah, I don't know if it's. I mean, I don't even think you have to put like license in it. It's just like open source. You could just.
I'm looking at it right now. Mojo programming language. It says the license is proprietary.
Are you kidding me?
It's a Python family made by Chris Lantner. Yeah. Is he working at Sci-Fi now?
Is he what?
Oh, is he working at Sci-Fi now? Or Modular AI, something like that.
Yeah. He's working at Modular, which does like custom setups for AI accelerators.
Okay.
They built Mojo. So a lot of like people are like, oh, Chris Lantner built Mojo by himself. It's like, no, actually he didn't. He has a company called Modular, which does a bunch of AI stuff, and they built Mojo. That's like a part of their infrastructure. Yeah. That's like probably the biggest part of it. The whole inspiration there is to take like pretty much just like simplify the development process of highly optimized kernels for deep learning. And
he has a good reputation though, which is why he got to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he built LVM and MLIR, and he worked at Apple for like a decade or two. Right?
Yeah, he's also responsible for Swift.
Swift. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
C-Lang as well. But yeah, he released like a bunch of open source shit, and then he decided to go closed source for Mojo.
Chris Lantner is the compiler god, the one and only compiler god.
Yeah, a lot of languages are made with LLVM.
Yep. It's kind of a little language without that stuff. But, yeah, dude, I wish I knew more about compilers so that I could send him more like smart looking emails.
You know, I actually kind of tried this once. So I tried to like make something with assembly, right? And like compare like me making the same program with like C. So I made like the same program in C, and I made assembly. And I kind of then looked at like the file size, and I found out that like the file size for the one that I made in C was actually smaller than the assembly one, right? Even though technically you're supposed to be able to make the file size smaller in assembly, right? Because we have like more direct control. But it's just the people that make the fucking compilers are so cracked, right? That they make the compilers more efficient than the average person could hope to write in assembly.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, people are like, "Oh, I'm going to write everything in assembly from scratch, so it's the fastest it can possibly be." It's like, yeah, maybe you should just stick with C, you know?
just stick to one of the actual programming languages, you know.
I mean, okay, if you're like trying to optimize something, and it's like it's like the compiler doesn't do it for you. Like, sure, you should go into x86 or PTX or instructions or whatever you need to do. But like outside of that, there's really good profiler tools, and a lot of the upgrades you'll see are actually just going to be from research. So just like a performance research paper where it's like how to do faster matrix multiplication. It's like Triton, for example. Like they introduced a new philosophy on how to do like tiled matmulls, and you pretty much just like write the they wrote a language and compiler for Triton that is now binded to PyTorch as the I believe it is the default matrix multiplication language. So PyTorch is binded to Triton, which is written in Python. Very cool.
Yeah, that's the thing about Python, even though it itself is like a shit language, because everything is like everything in AI is built for Python.
Yep.
You have to pretty much use Python for AI.
That's like, dude, like if PyTorch didn't exist, I don't know what I'd be doing with my life.
Isn't PyTorch literally just something to convert Python to C?
Well, yeah, I don't actually understand the entire PyTorch infrastructure, but like on the performance side, I do know enough to get by. But like the whole idea with PyTorch is, I mean, you can, it's interpreted. So
yeah,
you have these C and C++ bindings, which will just by default run, like they'll just execute a binary and input like numbers and pointers into it, and it'll just run fast. But then you can also do like compiled optimizations. So if you want to write something custom that isn't yet implemented, you can add like the triton.jet decorator onto a function or a method, and it'll compile that with Triton. So I mean, like all of the really fast things are written in like highly optimized C++ code. And then all of like the deep learning stuff that you're going to use, like attention and NLPs and activations, like those are all written in like all of the NVIDIA CUDA libraries. So you have like cuBLAS, which is for like matrix multiplication, and you have cuDNN, which is for doing fast activations and convolutions. So both of them support forward and backward, and you just like pretty much write those in CUDA, and then you compile that to like a shared object file, and then you call that shared object file in Python, and then reference a bunch of functions that call the functions within that shared object file. There's a lot of steps to it, but once you understand how that goes, it seems like kind of a trivial idea. It's like the easiest way to do it.
it basically makes Python faster, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean you're pretty much
just not using Python. It's not using Python on the back end. Just making it easier for developers.
Yeah. I mean, by default, Python is interpreted. So when you import all of your libraries like that, that's interpreted. But when you call a function, that's actually binded to you know, they have like C Python, which is where the C bindings are for the interpreter. So the interpreter just like does things sequentially, and then it calls stuff in C Python that like runs somewhat fast. Like it's just like pretty much that, but they just write custom kernels for you.
What do you think about something like Julia?
I haven't used Julia.
It's like it's more for scientific research, but I think it can probably be used for AI if someone really wants it to. But it's not like an interpreted language.
Yeah, I'd have to look more into Julia, to be honest, but there's a lot of things like that being
You can
built.
use all Python and R libraries into it.